good afternoon, everyone. I'm really happy to see you all there to share all our studies. I also want to thank the GSEF organization team for this opportunity. Today we are going, the session will primarily focus on the importance of the social impact measurement of work integration social enterprises, and we will have also the opportunity to listen to three speakers from Croatia, Spain and France. And I will first start this presentation by presenting and sharing my screen. I will present firstly what we are doing within ENSIE, what are our main aim and goals, and then present you the study that we yearly actually launch among our members to really evaluate the socioeconomic impact of WISES, how we measure it, but also exceptionally this year, and I think probably in the coming years as well, we had new variables that we added to the study to be able to evaluate the impact of the COVID-19 crisis on WISES across Europe. ENSIE was established in 2001, where we are based in Brussels, and currently we gather 29 national, regional, and local networks representing work integration social enterprises in 21 European countries, so not only the EU countries, but we also have members from Moldova and Serbia, for instance. Since 2011, ENSIE is considered by the European Commission as a really important and key actor in social inclusion through the Employment and Social Innovation Program. So we have a partnership with the European Commission. Together with our members, we defined key principles of work integration social enterprises, which are, for us, these enterprises' main aim is to really contribute to the integration of disadvantaged people socially and professionally on the labor market and socially in the society, to really become active citizens of the societies. These enterprises also act at the core of the economic system, so they are economic actors. And these enterprises have a strong pedagogical dimension. So this one is really important because these kind of enterprises really have an individual approach and a tailor-made approach towards each citizen, toward each individual, actually to really help them to provide competencies to upskill or reskill, to really help them then to easily integrate the labor market in the future. So the two main areas of our work is based on two priorities. Actually, the first one is really focused on the advocacy at the European level. So what we are doing, we are of course monitoring, we are following the European policies, the European tools. We're trying to input, to bring and to feed policies at the European level to really bring the realities from the ground at the EU level, to push the European legislation to be more favorable for the development of WISES at national level. And we are, of course, guiding this kind of dialogues between European level and the member states level. The second area is, and the priority is to really strengthen our members, to really give them the opportunity to guide them, to connect them with relevant stakeholders, to give them tools to really empower themselves, to be strong networks at national level that are capable to do an advocacy work, a relevant advocacy work, and to promote the development and the sustainability of WISES on their national levels. So now I'm going more deeper in the social measurement, social impact measurement, and I will start by explaining why it is important, why we are doing this kind of studies, what were the idea that pushed us actually to start our impact measurement study. We've launched it in 2015 for the first time, and now we're organizing it on the yearly basis every year. So why it is important? First of all, it's really important to find the negative stereotypes, because usually, and in some countries, social enterprises are associated with unsuccessful businesses. So this is really the first thing to fight, is this kind of negative stereotype that these studies really help to overcome. The second argument is more related to the current, actually, and it's not something new, of course, the external governmental, but also investors' pressure, because they need numbers, they need data to invest. So it's really important for WISES to demonstrate the impact, to receive investments, to receive funds, and at the end, provide itself sustainability in the future. So networks also use it for the advocacy at the national level. So it's really necessary for us to have this information and to be able to act at national levels with the policymakers, to really push forward the financial, the fiscal, and the legislative, for instance, regulation resolutions that will in the future help to create a kind of favorable framework, legislative framework at national levels for the prosperity of WISES. It is also interesting because it is really relevant to demonstrate the social and economic return, to really prove that and to showcase that when you have an integration process through work, it is effective. So, and it has a huge social return because people find jobs. A job contract usually means access to social protection, and then means that if you have children, they can access to education. So I think that the social return is really huge through this work integration social enterprises model. And at the end, the last argument is not really the argument, but the last point is that it's really important for the development of WISES at national levels, because they really contribute to the change of the mindset, to consume and to produce more responsibility with more responsibility. So I think that it's really important to put forward the UN 2030 SDGs in this agenda, but also we're talking about the European Pillar of Social Rights. More currently, at the European Commission, they're working on it, and we know that work integration social enterprises do contribute to these kind of policies and tools. So it's really important to put it forward. And when we organize such studies, we of course face a lot of challenges. Usually, national NGOs have a kind of lack of human resources. So usually it's small entities with a lack of human resources and financial resources, depending on grants or on public fundings. There is also, when we try to do something really relevant in terms of the impact measurement studies, so it implies we really need experts to do it, because we need the involvement of academics, we need the involvement of researchers, and so this is a huge work, and usually we don't have time, resources that I mentioned just before. So imagine once the study is launched and we can organize it, we can really launch a study, a survey. What is really also a kind of barrier is that there is also the private life. So for us in our study, when we talk about the social impact, is how many people really can find a job after this integrational process, how many people can find a job or became self-employed or have found a professional training or something like that. This is a positive outcome that we consider as a social positive impact. So for us, it's really difficult because in Luxembourg, for instance, after 6 months, there is no information about the worker. So this monitoring process of what is happening after is really difficult to follow. So we know that 80% of workers stay in the same enterprise about 6 months, but after it's really difficult to see the sustainability of this impact. So this is one of the challenge. And another one is that these kind of studies are becoming really famous. So we ask them more and more, and actors of these enterprises it's really becoming difficult to get the information. And I personally, when we led this study this year, I personally really faced some comments from members that I will share with you right now, that were really the barriers to have more information and to really gather the data we wanted. So as you can read, you can see that WISES are really tired to answer to surveys, so they do not reply anymore. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, of course, some organizations had to postpone these surveys. Others don't have any means, so it means that it's linked to what I said previously with the human resources capacities. So they don't have means. Otherwise, the information is too detailed for the members to be collected. So if they do not provide it for the official authorities, so it's really complicated for them to include it in already something existing. So to remediate to this challenge, actually, I'm working bilaterally with each network to really find a solution and to put our question into their questionnaires to be able to really have the data we want to, we expect to. So some WISEs do not want to share financial data because it's too sensitive according to them. And of course, the fact that periods are busy and they didn't launch the service this year, for instance. So this is, of course, again linked to the restricted capacities in terms of human resources. On the next slide, I will share you the results we had in 2018. So the data we collected in 2019 was for 2018, and we collected this year was for 2019. So as you can see, usually we have about 9 countries participating if we see the average. So in 2018, you can see that we had much more WISEs that took part in the study than this year. So, but I just want to mention that this year the work is still in progress, just because of due to the COVID-19 crisis. A lot of members took a lot of delays in the aggregation of results to. So we still need to, and we are still waiting for some promised results from several countries. So the study is not really accomplished, but already sharing with you the information I have for this year. As you can see, we had 363 WISEs took part in the study. The workers, the average turnover, and at the end you can see that 41% of all these workers found a job after the integration process, 6% became self-employed or found a professional training, and 33% other outcome. It means that there was no job solution, or people became ill, or others, and we don't have any information. So as you can see, the percentage is negative, but it's exceptionally this year, because in the brackets you can see the average of the 3 last years. So the 50% of found a job, the people that found a job, actually it's an average from 2016, 17, and 18. So usually the study, this study had between 65 and 75 positive percentage of people that really had a job, were self-employed, or found a professional training. So this is a kind of exceptional situation due to the COVID-19 crisis, who really prevent us to collect the information on the impact. But we will share, and I can share it also after my presentation in the chat, a link to our studies actually we did in previous years, and you can follow as well and have the final study when we finish it. So I will just share with you some other slides from the study of this year. So we can see that work integration social enterprises contribute to all the sustainable development goals, and especially the goal 8, 10, and 1. So the 10 is reducing inequalities, decent work and economic growth, no poverty, to gender equality. So we can see that there is really an important added value. Here you can have the sectors in which WISEs do operate. So you can see that agriculture is a huge sector, building and public works, care services, and home. But we can also have waste, which is in previous studies, waste was always at the first place. So waste is also an important sector for WISEs. Here you can see that the clients, who are the clients of WISEs. So for the majority, of course, we have it's private customers, and then 24% for public procurement through the reserved contracts and social considerations. Now I will focus, I will share with you the study we had related, as I told you, these additional variables we've added. So on the COVID-19 on WISEs in its impact. So we've sent these questionnaires, and we had answers from 7 countries. represented 1,557 WISEs across Europe. So the first question was globally how the COVID-19 really affected the activity of WISEs. And you can see that the majority of WISEs saw the activity decreased, and some of them had to close temporarily their structure. We also asked the question on the treasury situation of WISEs, and as you can see, they were really the majority have had the needs, but they were confident that they will find a solution. Others were more afraid that they have to cease payments before the end of the year. Another question was also related to the treasury. What step they undertook to really meet the treasury needs. So the majority had to reduce the planned investment for the year, or to get loans from a bank, or extend the payment deadlines to the suppliers. So here you can see how the subsidies varied for WISEs, and there were no changes for the majority of WISEs and an increase for some of them. And really few WISEs have a decreased or cancelled subsidies. What actions they took to deal with the operating losses? Actually, they accentuated the commercial canvassing efforts. They really repositioned themselves on their activities, or requested additional grants. Here you can see the main difficulties that they had, that they encountered. The main difficulties, and we can see that the majority, the major difficulty was to the supply of masks, gels, and other personal protective equipment. The difficulty to organize the activity and to respect the social distancing, the lack of opportunities also for activities, and the last one was also the limited availability of certain employees. So after all these results, we also asked our members to see what are their needs to be more resilient. And here I'm sharing with you some answers. So in the future, they really need they need more support from the states. That needs to include a higher amount of government funding to invest in trainings, in innovation, and networking. This is really important to share the practices between different countries. The development of specific support measure by governments for work integration social enterprises, really working on the legal definition at national levels. Promoting social clauses in public procurement is really important as well. As you can see, for Romania, also public procurement reserved agreements for WISEs. Some countries need also professionals in fundraising, adapted legislation, and of course, more visibility for WISEs. So, as you can see, the opportunities that these WISEs saw from this crisis is really, they could understand the importance of this business model, that when we have a crisis, it's also a moment to restructure and to maybe reveal new possibilities. So we discovered, the WISEs could discover really the importance of the variety of sources of funding. They saw new opportunities in job as a result of the crisis. They could also improve their digital skills, adapt their production. They saw also an increased interest from various stakeholders toward the sector. They were really resilient. Actually, I will share also a link after my presentation on the kind of survey we did directly when the crisis hit. I think we've contacted few members, and we did a study which is published online that we had a massive hit on a lot of sectors, on employment, on skills and education. So I will share it with you for your reading. And you can see here the last question they had to answer is what was about the national public authorities and their support during this pandemic. And you see that from country to country it varies a lot. From Croatia, national public authorities provided financial aid for job preservation, which were not only for social enterprise but for all types of enterprises. You can see that in Moldova, for a certain limit, for a certain period of time, the state reimbursed 60% of employers' expenses for payment of taxes and insurances. In Romania, unfortunately, no specific measure of support for WISEs were provided, and social economy entities registered as non-profit organizations were excluded from government support measures for enterprises. And for Spain, for instance, it was the same measures as for ordinary market companies. So it's really different from country to country. So within ENSIE, what we are doing right now at the European level is really this advocacy side work to ensure that member states give special attention to work integration social enterprises by supporting them, making available that vulnerable groups are really taken into account in all the tools that are available, and but also thinking about the accessibility to these tools for these disadvantaged people. And another important issue is also to ensure an inclusive civil dialogue at national levels, because it's crucial. Now there's a lot of negotiations going at national level, and unfortunately it's going behind closed doors. So we are really pushing forward for member states and ministries to collaborate and to include civil society organization in the dialogue, in the ongoing dialogues to help WISEs to be more represented and have access to these tools and funds that are available for them. So thank you very much for your attention. I will stop sharing my screen. Voila. Thank you very much. I just want to mention that we will continue the presentation, and if you have any questions, please use the chat. We have my colleague Pauline. She will read your questions, and it's at the end of all the presentations that we will answer to your questions.
2015, we passed to 143 million in 2019. As you can see, analyzing these data, we can affirm that our companies are mainly supported by the sale of their products and services. The economic return is the key data to me to represent the benefit of WISEs for public administration and society in general. WISEs represent savings, as Isa said too. WISEs represent savings for public administrations by covering potential beneficiaries of social benefits into taxpayers and consumers. These people stop receiving subsidies, begin to contribute to the social society, to the social security, and become active citizens. Together, our companies, without including almost 16 WISEs in Catalonia, returned in 2019 a total over of 8.5 million to the public administrations via taxes, as VAT, corporation tax, income tax on physical persons, and other tributes. Accordingly, the return per insertion position in 2019 was more than 6,000 euros. If we speak in global terms, the return of 1,486 vulnerable people amounts to almost 9 million euros. And as I said before, WISEs located in Catalonia are not included neither here. And what happened to our WISEs after COVID-19 outbreak? We asked them, and 73 WISEs replied our survey. As you can see, most of them are struggling with keeping up businesses, in addition to having financial losses and difficulties keeping jobs. First of all, WISEs tried to rearrange activities to maintain jobs. For example, introducing smart working, readapt or reduce working hours. Second, to reduce costs. Third, temporarily paralyze the activity between layoffs, termination of contracts. Then they also reconverted the activity to find new customers and search for new financing. And in terms of specific measures in relation to workers, they applied temporary employment regulation files, reducing of working hours, temporary suspensions of contracts. They embraced family conciliation measures, and they fomented smart working or granted early vacations. Our WISEs are also concerned about the precariousness of the actual and the future health situation and the variability of legislative measures against COVID-19. And as for financial implications, WISEs are concerned about the loss of sales and consequent loss of billing, loss of jobs, risk of closure, economic uncertainty in their specific sector, of course. We asked WISEs what measures could help alleviate this situation, and they answered for sure tax aid and deferral of payment of bills, but above all to approve extraordinary direct aid for WISEs and increase responsible public procurement. We can conclude that this crisis caused by COVID-19 accentuates problems that already existed in the Spanish labor market, such as precariousness, temporarity, and in some cases, inappropriate working conditions. But we have to consider that not all sectors are facing the same problems. The tourism sector right now in Spain has to deal with more complicated problems that the cleaning sector. For example, cleaning sector in these months has even been favored by the need to expand and maximize disinfection. The recovery will definitely depend on how long the health emergency continues. I think that's all from Spain, and Theo, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aisha, for your presentation.
Hi, morning everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening. It depends from which to GSF for inviting me to participate in this panel. Basically, yeah, I would like also to thank to Aziza sharing the results of the impact WISEs study at the beginning, since Croatia was one of the participants in the survey. I think most of the participants of this panel already have some kind of broad overview of what basically happened on the EU level and in Croatia, but I will try to give you maybe some more deeper information on the WISEs sector in Croatia, and basically what is happening last couple of months, and some of my opinion what I see that will happen in the future. So I think you all see the presentation. Basically, when we are talking about the Croatian WISEs, I mean the sector is really in the early stage of the development. So the first WISEs were established in 2006, 2007. So we are talking about less than 15 years of the social enterprise and wise development in Croatia. As you can see on the slide, still there is no policy or legal recognition, neither of WISEs, neither of social enterprises. The Croatia was listed a couple of times as a good example country in terms of development and yeah, basically development of the national strategy on social enterprise development. But now, after 5 years of the implementation, when mostly none of the measure was implemented, it seems it would be the example of bad practice. So yeah, we don't have any policy or legal recognition, as well as you can see and read. There are no research on WISEs. There is no statistical data, except the impact-wise survey that is implemented annually on the year level and as well as in Croatia. The only some kind of the overview of what is happening in the ecosystem of WISEs is the last exercise, group exercise we had with academia, practitioners, and social enterprise supporters using the OECD Better Entrepreneurship Tool, policy tool, where you can see basically that, yeah, when we are talking about the institutions, the public opinion, regulations, legislation, finance, and basically the markets for social enterprises, we are still at the beginning. Something that that basically we can see developed in the last couple of years is basically the skills of the social entrepreneurs and impact they are producing, which is more and more visible and measurable. So yeah, the WISEs are forming a small sector in Croatia. They are small in numbers, small in size, small in employees and markets they are reaching. The only information we have on WISEs is from the last European Commission mapping study, which was implemented in 2019 and published in 2018, where we have estimation of like 600 social enterprises, out of which more than 60% are associations doing the economic activities in their local communities. But something that is recognizable is yeah, that we have something around 150, 160 WISEs, not active but registered for this kind of economic and social activity. And as well as in the other countries, we are using still a variety of legal forms. We don't have the legal recognition, and as Aisha showed in their her presentation, basically they operate in various industries. I would say most successful WISEs in Croatia are performing in waste management industry. And just to conclude, the quick overview of the ecosystem in Croatia, basically we have the bottom-up approach in the development of the WISE sector. So still we have a really high level of understanding of the general public and decision makers on WISEs and the social enterprise itself. So basically, when we are talking about the public procurement, which could be significant source of income of WISEs, we just have one example of good practice in 5 years since the new law was adopted in line with the European directive. So as you can basically conclude, we are talking about really small WISE sector in a small country where maybe we had a little bit different path of the development than it was in Western European countries. And basically the sector is developing, as I said, just the last 14, 15 years. So the next couple of slides, I will share some insights we have basically from two different sources. One is impact-wise report that Aziza already presented, and the second one is the short survey we have made on our portfolio. I'm from ACT Group. We are acting as a regional WISE network, but at the same time as a social innovation lab and social enterprise, social business support organization. So we have more than it was exactly 42 yesterday social enterprises in our portfolio, among which almost third of them are WISEs. So something we figured out in April and in May. They're dealing with a couple of different challenges, but something that is common to all of them is they faced basically the restricted market. So basically they lost almost 90% of the existing market before the March. They also had difficulties in sustaining the supply chain. So as you can see, dropped down for 50%, mainly because the supply chains were international one. And when we're talking about the WISEs providing social services, as in the most countries who basically do the lockdown, face the difficulties in the implementation of the services. That was also the case for Croatian WISEs providing social services. But something that really surprised us, there were no real cash flow problems, basically. Some of them had the reserves for a couple of months. Some of them had a quite adaptable business model, and some of them had a good relationship with the suppliers. So most of the WISEs in our portfolio and WISEs from the impact-wise study showed I would say quite good resilience when we talk about the financial situation. But something that we really were happy to recognize was that WISE manager was struggling with this situation. So they really called us, please, we urgently need your daily mentorship, your daily help. We need, sector mentors, because we're facing like different challenges in the revising the business model, opening the new markets, basically getting the new like workforce, and as well as opening the operations also for volunteers to the local communities, etc., etc. And I would say the response from the intermediate organizations, the support organizations, was the most important in this topic. So once they basically once the WISE managers felt more secure in the daily operations, because there was somebody with them, monitoring them, helping them, basically guiding them hand by hand, and advising them on different operation situations daily. They somehow found the motivation to deal with the COVID situation, and basically found the motivation to revise the even complete business models. The last line here, is basically the reality. Since we have a low number of WISEs in the short term, we won't see any significant impact. But when we are, looking on the broad level, and since we are talking about the new and fragile, basically sector, of course, on the long term, impact is really significant, and definitely without the proper measures, WISEs will show more vulnerable and less resilient if the basically financial and non-financial ecosystem won't support them. So as I already said, most of them really adapted well to the new circumstances. So they, a lot of them pivoted the business models, revised the business models. So basically, they stayed with their beneficiary group, but they reinvented and innovated the products and services they are delivering. They also basically developed the new markets, or basically expanded the existing markets. As you can see, a lot of them, especially providing some kind of the services, shifted part of their business model online. And as I said, they somehow try to find the balance between the, involving volunteers and the paid staff in running the existing services. Something that was also really surprising for us, and that has to do also with the, of course, with the as someone wrote in the chat, with the DNA of WISES, but at the same time also with at least some yeah, on some level sustainable financial situation. They also provided a lot of voluntary services in the community. So restaurants, catering services operated by WISES, almost daily delivered fresh meals to those who are in need, but also to different groups of people, like the WISE restaurant in Pula at the Adriatic coast. They daily supplied free meals to COVID hospitals, emergency ambulance staff, to firemen, etc., etc. So that was from the WISE side. Aziz also mentioned that in Croatia, government responded with some kind of financial aid. Basically, we have been talking about the restricted grants for 3 months, covering just part of the salaries. So I would say this intervention basically helped a lot to all the WISES that basically faced the drop down in the economic activities in the market, etc. But somehow it wasn't enough for the WISES who operate in the tourism sector, social responsible tourism sector, hospitality, because majority of the Croatian GDP is reliable on the tourism sector. And since we had a continuity of the COVID situation and the huge drop down of the income from the tourism activities, for those WISES, that financial aid was not just enough. So I won't repeat myself, but in the last line you can see on general level how WISES reacted. So I was really happy to see that WISES showed their robustness and somehow transformation from linear to agile organizations. So most of them really shifted the business model. They developed the new products and services and shifted to new markets. But at the same time, as I said, they are still serving the same beneficiary group, and they're still in the line with their core values and the vision. And they also have been successful in the diversification of the funding, because some local governments also responded. The companies basically increased restructured their supply chain, and somehow helped a lot of WISES to continue with their economic activities. So what's next? I think we will also have some kind of the wrap up at the end of this panel, but I think we are facing really difficult situation, and we are aware of that. Something that is happening in recent days, it's just showing us that the autumn and winter and the spring will be much harder than it was in the first wave of the COVID pandemic. So something I have written down is basically also in the line with Aziz's proposals, but I would say that we really need to focus to develop and provide like fitting business support. I especially think that we need to support them in the transition to more agile and robust innovation-led businesses. I know this is not the case, and it cannot be successful with all types of WISEs working in all types of the industries in the sectors. But this is the moment where we need to basically say to ourselves that those who basically had the robust business model survived and didn't have any kind of problems during the crisis and still today. So I would say that from the point of the intermediary and support organizations, they immediately need to invest in new methodologies, new tools, online clinics, etc., in order to sustain the support they provided till now and basically increase their impact with the support provided to bigger number of devices. We have been also talking about the government measures. I think they're really important, especially for WISEs. But as Aziza said, in Croatia, we didn't have basically tailor-made for WISEs or social enterprises. Basically, there was measures for all economic actors, but they need to be right in time. So we basically maybe again have the luck that government proposed new measures last week. And I hope they will be in place at the beginning of next week. So I hope those measures will again help the economic operators to survive at least to some level. It's really it's a huge question how the government, how the country will survive this. But I hope that all the economic operators will use the money really effectively, especially in terms, as I said, revising their business model and moving from the traditional and long-term business to something more robustness. With the government measures, there are also impact investors, financial institutions, social banking institutions, who also need to act quite fast because they are now offering not so flexible capital. They need to shift to more flexible capital, and they need to pay or secure the technical assistance using that money and basically restructuring the whole organizations of business if this is the case. So, I think that will be the case with the most of the WISEs. I don't think we will see any positive development when we are talking about the socially responsible public procurement, especially now in this, because we still don't have educated, informed public officers. We still don't have good practice examples. I mean, this is the topic that is still somehow hidden under the table. But I think that corporations within impactization of their CSR strategies could be more effective. So I think corporations needs to see their responsibility in the society and basically do the more effective cooperations with all social and economic actors, especially with the WISEs who could be a great operator when we're talking about the supply chains. And from my point of view, but also from my colleague view, it is really hard to forecast anything. We will see what will happen in next weeks, next months. But something which is important, and I said that at the beginning, all of the organizations, all of the actors needs to move from transitional to from traditional linear to systematic thinking. We all need to move from like traditional methodology used in management, leadership, and project management more to agile and robust business models. And if we will all do that kind of transition, then I think we will all have the successful stories at the end of this pandemic, hopefully at the middle of next year. And since we don't have any really statistic data or relevant data which can be used for the development or forecasting what we need to do in Croatia, we are looking forward for the European Social Enterprise Monitor research, which will be finalized in December this year. For now, I saw that we have more than 50 respondents out of 100 social enterprises invited. So in the next month, I think we will have a majority of them answering. Most of the questions in the survey are related to the COVID situation and their business model and current situation in their operations. So this is the first time we will have some real data upon which we can basically plan something. Yeah, and this is a short and quick overview of what is happening in Croatia. Nothing really new. I think the similar situation is in the most countries. I think the biggest differences are basically when we are talking about the level of the development of the WISE sector and basically the approach the development used. It was more bottom up or a top down. But I'm looking forward to see what is the situation in France, and looking forward to discuss during this panel what are the possible solutions in the next months. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Theo, for sharing with us the situation in Croatia. What was really interesting, underlying the resilience of short-term and long-term, also underlining interesting facts related to the needs the needs we have to be more resilient and really ensure the resilience in the future. I think it's really important to work here, as I mentioned, also at the European Union level with member states really providing and using the potential we have now for WISEs at national levels. But also, I think what's important is that we don't want to go and to live at the level we had before the crisis. I think now we need more. We want more to use the crisis and bring something new and bring more social policies on the table, bring more social inclusion in the way we're thinking business models. So I think this is also, yes, very important. And we are going now to listen to our last speaker, Mr. Julien Baron from CORAS, France, who is also a member of ENSIE. So Julien, you have the floor. You can share your screen.
Hi, everybody. And thank you very much to Aziza, and thank you to ENSIE for invitation, and thank you to Aisha and Theo for the first presentations. Y un saludo a nuestros amigos en México, si están. We will talk about CORAS in France, and we try to watch after what we saw on Croatia and Spain, how it happened in France. Well, we will see it through our organization. CORAS, what is it? It's 560 WISE members with more or less 70,000 employees and more or less 50,000 people through our WISE each year. Well, it was created in 85, so quite old now. And with the goal, the aim to support legal advice, economic development, and training the different WISEs of the 500 enterprises network. Well, we are a member of ENSIE since 2019. I must say that CORAS is about two typical WISEs. We've got on one side WISEs who produce directly services and who produce directly products, and other WISEs make some workplaces outside. It means all the people through our WISEs, they go working on other places, in other enterprises, at home for domestic work. And this is more or less 2/3 of our WISEs, more or less. When it came, we made a survey at the end of June, and well, we were not surprised. More or less 2/3 of the turnover was lost in comparison with the year. And it was the first surprise, so a bad surprise. I mean, this was not such a surprise, but it was a reality. But the good surprise is that 2 months after, more or less, the turnover was back, not totally back, for 30% less than the year before, than 2019, but it was not so bad. But we must confess that what we are watching right now, is not the reality of each WISE. I mean that some of them, they were at 100% or more of turnover, and other were at 0. It means that some lost all the market, and other were higher than the market. And we will see why little bit after. So like other enterprises, of course, most of them had a problem of cash flow. We've got the chance that the network is quite old. So some enterprises, some WISEs of our network, they have a little bit money. They got some guarantees in this case. So that was the first problem, is more from the incomes than just cash flow. Secondly, when we ask adapting to this sanitary situation, how did you do? And was it complicated for you? And how were the costs? We try to know how much it costs to respect the new rules of, and these new rules about hygiene measures were supposed to be to have cost about 23% more. And like lots of enterprises, we had some dilemma and what to do, because when we've got some WISEs go at home to all persons, we've got 2 social services. First of all, to the employees, and secondly, to the people who receive the service. And what we have to do is it to preserve healthiness of the persons who work, or to maintain service to the people. And that was sometimes difficult to make the choice, but it also shows something really important. This is that many of our workers, which are supposed to be unemployed persons who are getting back to work, we remarked that they were really attached. They were really concerned about their services to the people. And that was really important, and we tried to explain this on the lobbies to the state too, because a lot of those words are not considered with money, but also not considered with the build the society give. And other thing really important is that, as I said, we've got two type of WISEs. The one produce services directly, the other put some person directly in other workplaces. And we got some services which are, we get more help from state, a lot, I mean, about 2/3, but other get really, I mean, like 10, 20% of the incomes come from the state. So it means that 80% of the incomes come from work and what we sell to enterprises, to people, and from those incomes come the possibility to get some social work. So if you don't have incomes anymore, because you don't have markets anymore, you don't have social work anymore, theoretically, because it was paid from the business. But we remark that 80% of the members of the network went on giving some social services, went on calling person, went on trying to solve all the social problems of their workers daily. That's really important, and that's a part of what we try to do as a network in our lobby to the state, and saying that what we can say, we are doing the job. Well, this is the way to explain more or less how do the WISEs get out from the crisis. The first, between what we say, the crisis began on the 17th of March, as I mean the crisis, the lockdown, and we didn't know how to do it, how to manage it. It was really new, and so we tried to know how the activity came back through the different stages of lockdown. We can say that after the two first weeks, in the months after, in April, it was quite difficult. Main of the activity was down, and it came back as we were on 11 May, so it means like 2 months after the lockdown, and it was also a way for the enterprises to adapt to the situation. And we will see how it was adapted. Yeah, so we'll talk about state aid, and after we'll see that this is not only the way to get out from the crisis. So like a lot of other countries, I think, and like other enterprises in France, 80% of wages were paid by the state if the employees are obliged to stop work. But we saw that it was not so simple, because as I said, a part of our activity is supposed to be necessary to persons on domestic work, for example. So we had some interpretation of the state different on the regions. Sometimes there was a justification to stop working? Sometimes no. It depends mainly of the danger, the supposed danger for the workers. And there was not such the same decision in all regions. So there was a deferred payment of social contributions and taxes, and but I mean that's really great. But what the deferred payment is something you have to pay. You have to pay a bit later, but you have to pay it. So that's great, but that's only differing the problem. And we had a provision of bank loans from BPI France, which is like a state bank helping helping the enterprises. And we had a lobby to get reallocation of specific inclusion funds. This fund was unused due to the crisis because it's proportional to activity. If there is no activity, if there is no workers in the WISES, we don't get that money. So we had a lobby to make a reallocation of this specific fund. And what's quite a big bill. And we worked to design what could be, how it could be used, and it was two parts. First of all, to avoid major revenue of loss of members, and secondly, assist in the creation and development of new activities, because we think that the things could not be the same. We are entering a crisis, and so we cannot act exactly as it was before. And I will explain why just after. If we go to the support given to WISE member by CORAS, it was really complicated because the law was changing daily. And so we needed to provide ongoing information on legal developments, general specific state aid measures, and what was complicated too, I imagine for you too, employers' health protection obligations. That was quite difficult. As I said, do the worker have to go working or not? If they are to go working, we had a responsibility as employers. There was, secondly, a lobby to ensure that members' benefits from the partial activity scheme, because it was not evident. This partial activity scheme is when you pay when you pay to the workers when they cannot go working. Thirdly, lobbying for the reallocation of public funds. I was talking about it. And providing support for WISES in their response to state requests for proposal, because it was quite complicated. So this is more about the network, about CORAS, but if we go back to the WISES and work of the WISES, what do we observe mainly? First of all, like Theo said before, sometimes we saw a reaction, a positive reaction. It was difficult, but something new was born in activity with the crisis. For example, about the production, as I think main countries in the world, we saw like some WISES, especially the more social ones, who began to fabric masks and protections and this sort of things, and to sell it to public services and something like that. So we had a reaction about what we can produce eyewitnesses and how we can produce it useful for the society. Secondly, in the when we had WISEs who get the workplaces outside of the WISE on enterprises, especially, but also in public offices like schools, I don't know, public buildings, and in private firms too. What we saw, this is that, for example, all about cleaning buildings, for example. There was a problem because after, when the crisis began and all the hygiene protocol was necessary, mostly the enterprises, classic enterprises, they didn't want to take risk, to go and to have the market. But the WISEs could adapt their services to what was necessary in the public buildings, for example, to make the hygiene protocol adapted to the reality of how the people work in the building, of how the management is, and this way to work with between WISEs and customers was finally quite interesting to make some good business. I mean, a useful one to get services. But to make this services possible, the most important is to have workers which are who get skills to make it. And that's the second positive aspect of the crisis. We remark that sometimes to get to adapt to the crisis, to the specific hygiene protocol, we made the skills of the person higher and more concerned about their work. And thirdly and finally, we remark that mainly the WISEs who are getting out higher and stronger from the crisis are the ones that cooperate more on the territory, that get relations, commercial relationships, which are not only commercial, but also that are useful for the territory, and that thought with their customers, that are thought with regionally, with city halls, local city halls, and the sort of skills. So I think I'm ready to I don't know if we have a little discussion after.
Yes. So yes, thank you, Julien, for sharing your situation on the ground in France. I want to thank all the speakers for the presentations. I don't see any questions, so please, if you have any questions, just raise your hand or type it in the chat. I saw just a comment on the resilience of WISEs, that it's in their DNA. Actually, I think in Croatia, Theo mentioned that in France we can really adapt, but I think what is really an amazing capacity of WISEs is that they really try to keep jobs and to try to keep people employed, and this is really something important, especially for the social impact. So this is also an important thing. So I don't know if the public have any remarks, questions. Just raise your hand or type it in the chat.
Aziza, also something interesting I heard from the different presentation is that I mean, from what I understood, like in none of the contexts, like the direct from the support from the government is the key concern. So I think it's linked to the realization of the resilience of WISES, like, you know, that basically the solution will also come from the enterprises themselves, and not. So of course it's helping, and obviously some short-term measures were probably very helpful, and I think Theodore shared some.
Yes,
I mean,
Theo.
actually all speakers, but it's not a number one concern. Like voices are not waiting, including networks, they're not waiting for the support from government. They're just waiting to be heard, to accompany kind of like the long-term strategy, mid-term strategy, let's say, because now we know that the crisis is going to last a bit longer. So yeah, that's what I heard from the presentation. It was very interesting, I thought.
Yeah, I think it's crucial because yes, at this time, and I think Theo also mentioned it, that when we see at the long term what will happen at the long term, we need to prevent it right now. And I think the governments are really crucial in this. Why? Actually, we've mentioned a lot of times visibility of why it's really important to foster to find more not really consumers, but being more visible, to have this access to all the tools that our European Commission is pushing, to really create collaboration between Europe, between member states and local civil society organization. And unfortunately, in our practice, and we are working on it, so it's really important to push forward the member states, collaborate, and to include, to have dialogue that are really inclusive at national level, so to allow these actors actually to be heard at national level, and have means that are available, that create a framework where they can really use it to prevent and to really ensure a sustainable economic situation for WISES at national levels. So exactly. Yes, yeah. And especially now with the framework at the European Union, with this reshaping of the European semester process. So yes, it's really important that member states get involved in, as well as civil society organizations.
I think we have 2 questions.
Yeah, if there is any representatives of social enterprises creating employment for disadvantaged groups outside the European Union, so if among the present people there are some representatives, can you share and talk about how WISES in your country react to this crisis?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there is any WISE in Croatia employing some third country or some persons from the countries outside of EU. I cannot remember anyone, so I cannot answer the first question. The second question I answered in the chat. So basically, there were a couple of WISEs who are doing the textile production, but they didn't accept the offer mostly from the government institutions to produce the individual protection equipment, masks, etc., due the low price offered for those products. There was no ROI for them.
Yes, I think as Theo in France, there was not so especially politics about that. About I mean, coming from Central State, there was local. This could be with locally some production, and they were selling to the local market with volunteers to buy it, and to buy it with a good price, and with a good quality, because there is a problem too about the quality, if it was filtered or not, on this sort of things. So unfortunately it functions, but without politics to buy local. mainly masks came from other parts of the world.
Yeah, and I think also that a lot of voices also, it was not really for the government, for the country, but a lot of voices when we talk about the direction of the activities, a lot of voices started to produce masks actually for distribution or for selling. So.
Yes, in Spain too, Wises starts producing masks, medical grounds, etc. First of all, they donated all this stuff when the situation was really hard. I'm talking about the first months of the pandemic, and then they start selling it, and they are good products with a medium price, I can say.
So I think there are no additional questions in the chat. So I just want to thank the participants to be here, to share this session with us, to our speakers, to the GSEF team for the opportunity once again. And do not hesitate to contact us, of course, if you're concerned by work integration, social enterprises, and we will actually the next year also publish a study to evaluate what will happen during like 1 year after the crisis, how Wises, in which situation they will be. So I will already share the link in the chat, so you can follow all the publication related to COVID-19 on this website. So thank you, everybody, and bye-bye.